am free and belong to no one, I have made myself a slave to everyone to win as many as possible. To the Jews I become like a Jew to win the Jews. To those under the law I become like one under the law, though I myself am not under the law, so as to win those under the law. To those not having the law I became like one not having the law, though I am not free from God's law, but am under Christ's law, so as to win those not having the law. To the weak I become weak to win the weak. I have become all things to all people, so that by all possible means I might save some. I do all this for the sake of the gospel, that I may share in its blessings.
Thank you, Brinkley. That's where we're going to be focusing in this week and this month. So we're starting a new series tonight, and it's a series all about social media. And this month we are going to talk a lot about just how to be healthy in our social media interactions, how to be healthy in our social media choices. Now, I have to admit something to you guys. I recognize there is a large gap between the way that you interact with social media and the way that I interact with social media. And I recognize that I'm an old guy who is not in touch with everything going on in social media. So I recognize that, and I am going to, this month, just try to help everyone in the room interact with social media a little bit better, myself included. Now, I want to share with you guys my own personal social media history. I got my first social media when I was in high school. I was probably like a sophomore or junior in high school, and it was a little thing called AOL Instant Messenger. It looked something like this. This was my first experience with social media. You just typed in a message to your friend. The cool thing about this is you could leave this box up and you could leave, hey, I'm at the movies, and all of your friends that were on Instant Messenger could know, hey, he's at the movies. It was groundbreaking, and it was absolutely incredible. And I kept Instant Messenger almost all the way through college. For a long time, I kept Instant Messenger. That was my main mode of social media for a very, very long time. Instant Messenger was one of the first. And then MySpace opened up. I never had a MySpace account because it was more like a blog, but I did have a Zynga. When I got into college, some of my friends got Zynga, and then, like I said, this was the extent of social media. Like Friday, October 20th, 2006, today I did yada, 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 yada. That was it. That was social media at its peak. And then, in 2005-ish, I took a step into a new social media site that was just coming out. It was only available to college kids. You actually had to enter your college email address. It had to end in a .edu in order to even access Facebook. And I was pumped to be on Facebook and to be a part of Facebook. But you got to recognize that it was a far cry from the social media that we experience today still. In those days, these did not exist. You had flip phones back in those days. So if you wanted to upload to social media, you sat down at your desktop computer and you typed something out. There were no pictures. I mean, you could add pictures, but the pictures that people put on social media were very, very few and far between, because in order to get a picture onto social media, what you had to do is you had to pull out an old school digital camera, and you had to go take the picture with the digital camera. Then you had to take the chip and the SD card out of that digital camera. You had to put that SD card into your computer, open up a file folder, drag the picture from the folder to your computer desktop. Then you had to open up Facebook. Then you had to go import picture to Facebook, then type your message. That was one picture uploading to Facebook. So it was a far cry from where we are today in social media. But I was pumped to be a part of social media. Now again, I recognize the way you interact and the way I interact are different. And generally, there are two extremes when we start talking about social media. One extreme, generally the older generation, says, okay, this is new, this is dangerous, this is not super healthy, you should avoid at all costs. That's one extreme. The other extreme says this is new, this is awesome. Let's take some risks and let's interact with it. Let's be a part of what's emerging, and let's be a part of this new thing. Now, here's what I recognize. Both of those extremes are unhealthy. And our goal as we interact with social media should be to land somewhere in the middle. I think social media is absolutely incredible. It is an incredible tool, and we'll talk more about this month. And I think that we should use social media to impact people for Christ while engaging in our own walk with Jesus Christ. And so this month, this is where we're headed. This lesson is going to be shorter because we had a longer game. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview of where we're going this month. But first I want to focus here because the Bible has no verses on social media. Paul had nothing to say about social media, but Paul was a master. He was a master at standing in the middle and using whatever he could while maintaining his walk with Jesus Christ to engage people with the gospel. He was a master at it. Look, Brinkley read this earlier, but he says this, I'm free from all. I've made myself a servant to all that I might win more of them, more people. Says, to the Jews, I became a Jew in order to win the Jews. To those under the law, I became under the law, so on and so forth. Now Brinkley read this. I want to just touch base on a few things because this is a really long text that can you can just start to zone out. But here's what Paul does. In those days, there were Jews. And the Jews were the people that said, the Old Testament says this, these are the laws, these are the rules, we're going to follow them. We're not going to eat certain types of meat. We're going to make sure we stay kosher. We're going to make sure we obey the Sabbath. We are going to follow the Old Testament, which was called the Law of Moses. And there were Jews that were Jesus followers. Then there were people that were not Jews. They're often referred to as the Gentiles. These people said, dude, I'm not a Jew. I can eat whatever meat I want and still worship Jesus. Yeah, I don't have to follow all of these laws in the Old Testament as long as I am not disobeying the law of Jesus and following Jesus. And so what Paul says is when he was interacting with a Jew, if he went to a Jewish house to sit down, he knew he could eat whatever meat he wanted. Jesus gave him the freedom to do that. But when he was with Jews, guess what? He wasn't going to eat that meat. When he was with the Gentiles, he wasn't going to be like, dude, you guys shouldn't be doing that. What are you doing? He became all things to all people while maintaining his relationship to Jesus Christ. And it's this beautiful thing. He says to those outside the law, when he says outside the law, he's talking about that Old Testament law that people followed so rigidly. He became like people outside the law. He did this to win some. And so the question we're going to wrestle with this entire month is when we interact with social media, when we post, when we respond, when we comment, when we like, when we Snapchat, when we tweet, when we do whatever it is that we're doing on social media. Our goal is that we would show the love of Christ. You're not going to hear me stand up here and say, don't be a part of this social media, don't be a part of that social media. I'm not going to say that. Because here's what I recognize. What I recognize is that if you go and you be a part of the newest and greatest social media, the one that the older generation says, oh my goodness, that's dangerous. Yeah, we're going to talk about the pitfalls and making sure we're protecting ourselves. But when you go interact there, you're going to touch people that I will never have the opportunity to touch. You see, you have an incredibly unique opportunity as middle schoolers and high schoolers, an incredibly unique opportunity through social media to connect with people where they are while maintaining your walk with Jesus Christ. You guys have a better opportunity to touch base with people on social media than I will ever have. It's the beauty of being in middle school and high school. I will never have the opportunity that you guys have right now. And yes, we have to be careful. We have to make sure that we are protecting ourselves. We have to make sure that we are maintaining our walk with Jesus Christ. But you guys have an incredible opportunity. And so what you're going to hear me say this entire month is this: we need to interact. But while we interact, we need to maintain our walk with Christ. We need to be showing people the love of Christ. So here's where we're headed this month. Next week, January 15th, we are going to be talking about how social media is an incredible tool. It has revolutionized the ability to encourage people. It has revolutionized the ability to show Jesus' love to people on a broad scale. It has revolutionized the ability to connect with other people in a very real way. It's an incredible tool. And we're going to talk about how God can use that tool through us to go impact people for his kingdom. The next week, January 22nd, we're going to talk about avoiding the pitfalls of social media, because let's be honest, there are some pitfalls involved in social media. While social media is an incredible tool, never before have Christians hurt people so deeply as they do on social media. It's this incredible opportunity, and I am convinced that if Paul was here today, he would say to people on social media, I got on social media. But I think Paul would also say, never before have Christians hurt people so deeply as they have on social media. Never before have we been hurt so deeply as individuals as we have on social media. So we're going to talk about avoiding the pitfalls, keeping ourselves safe, and making sure that what we post is expressing the love of Christ to other people. And then on January 29th, we're going to talk about the art of self-examination. We're going to talk about sifting out the good from the bad and making sure that we are being honest with ourselves and making sure that we are examining ourselves. And as we interact, we are maintaining a walk with Jesus. And so that's where we're headed this month. And I recognize we played a really long game tonight, so I wanted to keep this short and just give you a brief overview. But I do want to give you a really practical challenge. As we head from here, I want to give you this practical challenge. I want you to just answer this question. Is how I'm interacting with social media showing the love of Jesus that are interacting with me in that space? Is how I'm interacting with social media showing the love of Jesus to those that are interacting with me in that space? I want us to begin thinking through that question this month. When I post, when I respond to a post, when I scroll, is how I'm interacting with social media showing the love of Jesus Christ to those that are interacting there with me in that space? Let me pray. God, thank you for social media.